Stop talking about comic books or I'll kill you. I don't care if the Hulk could defeat the Man of Steel. I'm gonna rearrange your face if you continue to debate whether Logan's claws could pierce Steve Rogers' shield. I just couldn't care less if they bring back Kraven. And I don't care if Spider-Man's a clone. Stop spending all our cash on back issues of The Flash, or I swear to God you're gonna spend your twilight years alone. You can call them graphic novels. They're still just plain old comic books to me. And I don't see why you must always ceaselessly discuss the post-zero-hour continuity. For the last time, I won't read those Kirby X-Men. You know that I prefer the work he did for DC. And if you don't want to die, you'll lose that old Street Price Guide, Comic Buyer's Guide, and Wizard Magazine. But please get the new Invisibles for me.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. So it's going to be an exciting night tonight. We have a very interesting lineup. We're going to have a first ever CG comic review grudge match. So two comics are going to face off tonight. We're going to compare the two, and we're going to see who's left standing at the end of everything. So it's going to be great. I hope everybody's going to enjoy it, and may the best comic book win. So first I'm going to check in with the chat. Sorry, everybody, for a bit of the delay earlier. There were some technical issues. But I just want to say hi to Jack Stafford. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for being here. And Jazz Crab, sorry we're already boring you. Hopefully things pick up, but we'll see how it goes. No promises. Rami, thanks for being here. Yes, don't forget, like and subscribe. Keep the channel alive. Keep the show going. We want to do a lot more episodes. We've got a lot more ideas coming up for you. Amit Reina, so thank you for being here. Chat's not dead yet. Chat's just coming to life. And rumor has it that Simple Jack is not a fan of Well-Read User 1. That's okay. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Who else do we have here? Quaff. So Quaff's already choosing a side. He's apparently Team Rob. He's firmly in Rob's corner. He's wishing R.I.P. to Lunga. Hey, Great Council, that's Lunga. He's already concerned. He's on the ropes already. Review hasn't even started yet, Lunga, so you still got time to pull this one out. You never know. You might scrape out a win here. Smug Pug, yep, that's right. There were some audio issues, but everything's okay. Wilberforce Wooster, great. Somebody got a lot of sales. I'm guessing that's Quaff, because there was a drive to raise some money for him earlier. So, and Rob, so thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the review, and you take everything in stride. Guys, I wanted to come in on this stream, but it's not going to be possible if my current situation would wake up the kids. Well, you could always wear your headphones, or you could always catch this on replay. It's up to you, but I'm sure you'll hear quite a bit about the outcome of this review. So let's see, and Buck Rogers, always great to have you here. Again, guys, the link is going to be in the chat after the reviews are done, so people are more than welcome to jump in. Creators, chat members, anybody can have their say the minute we get through the review. Twitless, hey, it's great to see you here, and Testify, of course. Thank you for joining us. And Cider Hype, always great to see you, and we really enjoyed having you on the review panel a few weeks ago. So, without further ado, I'll bring in my two reviewers and we'll get things rolling. So please welcome and say hello to Moonshine.
Hello.
And Smugpug.
Always such enthusiasm from Moonshine.
I try to keep it down. I don't want to overexcite the chat.
Well, I can tell Testify's already excited. He's very excited about these reviews.
Oh yeah, he like needs to go off and have some alone time. He's so excited.
Yes. Testify, please tell your nurse I said pull the plug.
I wonder if Testify would ever join us as a guest co-host reviewer someday. I wonder if there's a particular comic book he'd like to join us to review.
I'd make sure I'd leave as soon as he joined.
Wouldn't he have to read comic books first to be able to review one?
Well, he could have a comic book read to him.
Ah, that's true.
Like a story time for a
Yes.
child.
Hopefully he could form an opinion based on that. So he's got 101 temperature. We wish him all the best. Could just be that it's hot where he is right now. So maybe if they just turned on a fan or something, he would cool off. But who knows?
Jack Stafford likes the moon.
Yes, we're all going to the moon. We've all got our stonk tickets, and we're just
Daddy
waiting.
Daddy Musk is taking us there.
Like the honeymooners were going to the moon?
That's right. Pow. Right in the kisser.
Yes. At least I know you'll get the references.
Absolutely.
From old things, at least, not anything new.
No. Nothing in the last 3 years, please. I'll just be lost. The only kinds of things I get are things like this.
Just like a woman.
Good news, Amit is in chat. Smugpug's biggest fan.
No, great. Testify as a fan of Soyman. God fucking damn it, Amit. The stream hasn't even been going for 7 minutes and he's already starting. Well read.
Damn it. We like Soyman America here, Amit.
Twitless says he has read Isidora, so if he wants to join us later, that'd be...
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. So we'll go through our opinions here, and then we'll open things up for people to come in and chime in if they want to.
I was actually going to reach out to Twitless because I noticed his Red Rooster review, and I think we'll be reviewing Red Rooster at some point. So
I have
maybe
not
Twitless...
received it yet, or gotten an email saying I...
Well, I noticed on his Indiegogo page that he is fulfilling now. Like they're starting the process, so it might be good to have Twitless on.
I think he's going to send out boxes on Monday, but yeah, he's packaging things up and whatnot right now.
Yeah, cool. So, Twitless, keep your DMs open.
I think I can promise the Great Loner that yes, there will be no J Money on this stream.
Yeah, J Money isn't familiar with these parts, so he doesn't come around here, fortunately.
I think I noticed him in the chat.
Twitless went to Walmart to get his. I've read actually the first 2 Red Roosters. I've not gotten the third. I think they stopped selling the Allegiance Arts supply in my Walmarts because they sold so poorly. But
Wow, so Walmart has all 3 issues already?
yes,
Oh no.
we'll have a lot of drama to talk about as well if we get to that review.
Yeah, that's a book I've backed, and I can't believe the Walmart readers got it before I did. So, anyway. I guess we'll get to the things we have on tap for today. So, today we have a grudge match between 2 titans, Isidora and the other book... Sorry, I'm
Tales from the Classroom.
Tales from the Classroom. Thank you very much. So we'll review each in sequence, and then we'll go over a comparison between the 2, and we'll choose a winner. And we'll probably save scores until the very end, just to not give away exactly who's going to be coming
I
out
will
on top.
say that 2 books that if you were to say, if someone asked you what they're about in one word, you'd say monsters. That could be 2 completely different types of tones and styles of books, but I guess they have that in common. They have monster-like things in them.
Yeah, I have the furnace on extra loud just for you, Testify, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'll be sure to keep it going.
So, where did this grudge match idea come from, Well Read? Because it wasn't my idea, and both Rob and Lunga both reached out to us and offered their books for review, and now it's turned into a bread and circus. What's going on?
It's called making entertainment.
I mean, that was me. I was posting the stream, and I was like, 2 books to review. Well, let's have them face off against each other because that'll be fun to promote, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. And I think a lot of these reviews end up being compared against each other anyway. People say, "Oh, I can't believe my book did better or did worse than some other books." So why not just do the comparison ourselves and see how the audience feels about your opinions?
It's a bold move, Smugpug. Let's see if it pays off.
I think this will be the last time we'll have any creators reach out to us to review their books.
What?
Exactly. Okay, which book are we doing first?
Do you want to start with Isidora because it's the first in the title?
Sure.
Ladies first, I suppose.
Ladies first.
So I'll bring up the campaign while we're talking about it.
And while you do that, Lunga provided us with a copy, so thank you for that. I don't think either of us had backed it prior, right?
No, I missed that one. So full disclaimer, Lunga did send us a review copy. However, it will not influence the outcome of the review in the slightest.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust Smugpug, actually, but
I'm very distrustful. Just look at my little face.
I would just advise any creator that's offering their books for review. All of us have mortgages, and we're more than happy to have our homes paid for a good review. So that is on the table.
I actually don't have a mortgage, but that's okay.
Well, maybe you'd like a second home.
That's true.
There you go. So you never know. Sky's the limit. Okay. Let's bring up Isidora. And here we have Isidora and the Immortal Chains. And Lunga, I believe, is in the chat. He's listening intently, wanting to know exactly how this is all going to shake up for him. So let's start with, I'm curious exactly what kind of length book is this? Is this going to be a fairly short dive, or is this a pretty lengthy story?
It's standard comic book length.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about 24 pages. It might be a little more, a little less.
Yeah, we have 30 pages, but it has covers and stuff. So
yeah, it's always hard to get a correct page count on a PDF because there's normally extra things thrown in there. But I think 24 pages.
Yeah, so standard comic book length, and he's charging $5, so that's pretty standard comic book, off the shelf you'll get nowadays. So it's charged appropriate. The price is appropriate.
And there's a lot of additional things that you can buy. There's merch, apparently, for this series. Immortal Chains collector's box. Interesting. So there's a whole branding surrounding this project as well. It's not simply a book.
Yeah, and there's 3 covers, I think, for the first issue. I see 3 covers. There might have been more for later campaigns, but we have 3 covers.
Okay. And is there any particular preference for the covers, or?
I like the cover there on the main page. The one with
I think that's my favorite as well. The one you see what you're looking at.
I wish there was a way to just... Okay, there we go.
I guess that's kind of more of a anime style, or at least softer lines and stuff. The cover that we have I think is the same artist as the interior. It seems a similar style, at least.
Yeah, it's a Alper Gekgul. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation.
If Lunga comes in later, he can tell us how not to butcher the name.
Right. And is this also the interior artist?
No, not, the one you're looking at's different. That's
the
somewhat...
So if you go back out, and you'll see the image on the far left.
Far left.
One. That's
so it looks like there was 4 covers on that page. Yeah,
I think the interior artist.
Yeah. I would say the style, when I was thinking about it, was actually pretty similar to the Berserker style that we reviewed previously.
I was thinking the exact same thing, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, Moonshine.
Yeah. So it's kind of a muddy type style, but it's pretty stylized. I think if anything, there's more lines than the Berserker, but otherwise it's pretty similar.
Now, describe this character to me. What exactly? I realize this setting is probably ancient Greece, I'm guessing.
Not exactly.
Okay. So where is this character? What time and what place?
So it's revealed kind of throughout who she is. It has a hint right at the beginning of the story. So I guess you could share my screen, and that might help.
Okay.
I hope Lunga is not minding if we share a few pages. Let me see if I get this. Okay, now I'm ready. So this is like it's like standard New York City, I think, because you got.
I think it's Chicago. Actually.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden you get this kind of flashback to ancient Greece. So it hints at this, and I won't leave this art up, but so she's originally from ancient Greece, but this is taking place in modern day. So the question is, what is she exactly? So she's connected to some higher god of some sort. It's kind of like elder gods are mainly what this story is about, and they're, I guess, avatars or agents that interact with the real world.
Yeah, she pretty early on it's referenced that she works for an entity known as the King in Yellow, and like Moonshine was saying, I guess he's a sort of a greater power, and she's his avatar or representative on Earth.
Okay. And Twitless makes an interesting point here. He says that it's an Alex Maleev title. It looks a little bit like Alex Maleev's art. I think I agree with that, just from what I remember on his run in Daredevil. It does kind of remind me of that same art style. So.
And Twitless points out it's Rome, not Greece, and that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Toga's, I guess, should be been a pointer. That's Rome, actually. People actually do not know exactly what Grecians wore, interestingly enough.
She's the avatar of Haster. Haster? Okay. So this is a goddess then? A Wonder Woman type figure? Is that correct? Or
she's not a goddess.
I don't think she's a goddess.
She's like been given powers by a god, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah, she mentions that throughout the story that she was human once when she's observing the humans in the modern day Chicago. So I'm guessing she was a regular woman at one point, and something happened to change her into this.
Yep. The setting is in Rome, Matt C. So that should be interesting for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think Matt C might. I'd like to know what his opinion, if he ever reads this, what he thinks, since he probably knows the backstory and maybe some of these gods better. Although I don't think they're Roman gods; these are more of other types of gods.
Yeah, I think they're inspired by Lovecraft.
Yeah, I definitely recognize one name at the end of the book.
So Buck Rogers has news for us. Rome is not Greece.
Thank you, Buck.
At one point, the Roman Empire did include Greece, though.
But what he really wants to know is, what kind of dogs did they have?
Smug pugs, probably.
Pugs, that's right. Rogers is a fan of the pugs.
I hope not.
And so she's immortal? Is that the reason why she's originating
she's
from
not
ancient
immortal because she does fear that she might be destroyed at some point in the book. But I think
she is. I think she is immortal, but she's not invulnerable.
Yeah,
there's a difference between the two. Because I think she mentions that she's 2,000 years old, so that would imply that she has some level of immortality. But from the way that she describes her fights, she's clearly not invulnerable, so she can be killed. She's just immune to the effects.
Or at least removed from the human plane of existence. I don't know if she can be brought back. That isn't explained too far in the book, so you have to make your own guesses on that.
Now, is it that she just doesn't age, or she just ages on a different time scale from everyone else?
That again, I mean, it doesn't look like she's very old, so there's no time limit put on her age or anything like that. And it seems to almost suggest that she was just a part of this god and just recently was be given like her own free will or something like that.
I see. Okay. So not a god, but it sounds like a fallen goddess.
I think more of like an avatar, like a representative.
Yeah, 'cause it's she mentions duality, like there's the gods and then they're representative on Earth, but they're like it's kind of like she's it's compared to like the Catholic Trinity of so they're consubstantial with each other. They're different but the same.
Yeah, I think she's imbued with the powers of her patron god. So she's his incarnation of his will and power on Earth.
Interesting. Okay. And so, what's the purpose of her having these powers, and what brings her all the way to modern day Chicago?
Well, there's kind of a two. So one of it seems like her god needs some sort of sacrifice. So in the beginning of the book, she's killing this person by making him kill himself by making him see things. So he kills his girlfriend, and then he kills himself because she's making him see these things. And so it's like she says, oh, that's what the King in Yellow wants her to do. But then they've been selling this little girl's body, and so it's like she makes this girl see her so the cops see her so the cops can save her. It's like this is pointed out as something that she just wants to do for her own personal feelings. So she kind of wants to like do good even while she's fulfilling her god's interests. So like she kills these horrible people, but she wants to save good people. But that doesn't seem to be the King in Yellow's goal. That's just what she personally wants to do.
Yeah, I think we better just quickly mention that there are some very adult themes in this book, and it's probably not something you want to recommend to a child. It's a mature story.
Yeah,
actually, I
older
appreciate
teen.
that. Yeah.
I mean, you don't really see these things, but you do see gore and stuff. It's not like that you see rape or anything, but an older teen is probably the youngest you'd want reading this.
Yeah, so like Moonshine was saying, the story opens up in Chicago, and it kind of shows the city and compares it to the ancient Roman times, as Isidora compares how in both times the populace of each respective city were oblivious to the horrors that were going on around them. And it opens up with a meth addict called Teddy, who's seeing things. So he's seeing a Cthulhu-like monster attacking his partner, and this is how we're introduced to Isidora, and it almost makes her seem like the villain, because it's quickly revealed that the monster doesn't exist. She's manipulating Teddy into seeing the monster, and it results in him murdering his partner and then taking his own
at
life.
least at best she's like an anti-hero. She's like killing the villains rather than bringing them to justice. But
yeah, she comes across almost like kind of like the Punisher, I guess, in ethos. Yeah. She has no qualms about killing evildoers. Originally I thought she might have been the villain, because I wasn't really aware of much of the backstory, but it's quickly revealed that these two meth addicts have been selling their daughter into child prostitution in order to pay for their meth.
I don't know if it's even their daughter. It's just they have wardship over her for some reason.
So he describes it here himself as, think Silver Surfer meets Constantine meets Lovecraftian horror.
I could see that as the Silver Surfer is kind of like the avatar of Galactus. So sure, that works. And he needs to feed, so she has to like feed the Yellow King by making these sacrifices. And what was the other comparison we were making to Constantine?
Constantine, Lovecraftian horror.
Yeah, that's probably just the Roman part, but there might be other thoughts that Lunga meant by that.
Buck Rogers wants to see more Greek gods in this. So,
well, they're not Greek or Roman gods, at least, I think. At least not mentioned explicitly.
So
Testify is clearly a fan of the review. He says the only thing entertaining right now is the black bars on the screen.
Well, with 101 degree fever, I'm assuming that everything is black right now for Testify. So I'm sure he's very entertained. So it sets up a journey for this character, right? That she has to accomplish this mission for the Yellow King.
Yeah.
But does it set up a conflict? Is there anything that this character, any adversity that she experiences that she has to overcome?
Yes. So like I mentioned, there's this little girl she wants to save, and then she meets some other kind of creatures that are actually real rather than illusions, and they wanted the girl for their god, which is, I don't remember which god, is another Lovecraftian god they serve.
Yeah, I think they're called the Migo.
Yeah, they're the Migo.
And they serve Shub Nigorath.
Yeah. So she's like, why do these things want this girl? So she's tracking, so she destroys them or kills these things. And then she's like, well, why did they want this girl? So she's trying to hunt down this cult, and in this cult, so it doesn't like bring evil gods into the world. Yeah, so those are those things these are the Migo she confronts.
Yeah, I saved this panel just because I like the style of the monsters, the Migo. I think they are very true to that Lovecraftian mythos of just horrible, warped, sort of nightmarish monsters. I thought their design was really well done. Very alien, and just, yeah, you wouldn't be too pleased to see these things pop up in your living room. Quite horrific.
I'm sure those things are dancing around in Testify's head
Matt
right
C
now.
says, Smug, you can't say Niggurath on YouTube.
We just did, Matt.
Could you?
So in your face.
It's a character. There's no hard R, and there's a wrath after it. But yeah, that's a. I don't really know much about Lovecraft, but I know that is one of his eldritch gods, mainly from playing South Park.
Yeah, that one's familiar. I've actually read all of Lovecraft. I'm not familiar with the Yellow King, but I know there's lore that was developed after he died because people like to play in his universe.
Also, she's basically fighting, these evil monsters. You mentioned there was a little girl that she has to save as well. Is there anything personal about her conflict? I mean, does she have to struggle at all with the fact that she's 2,000 years old and still mortal? And why exactly is she choosing to take on this role as being a combatant of these evil spirits?
Well, it's not really explained in the first issue. I'm guessing that's something that'll be revealed more with her backstory as the series continues. But I feel like, like Moonshine was saying, she's doing this at the behest of the King in Yellow, and the Migo monsters. When they appear, they were clearly after the little girl and were planning to use her for something. And so I guess they're in service to another eldritch entity that might be the enemy of the entity that she serves. So it might be we don't really know how much of this is Isidora's free will that she's doing this, or perhaps it's at the behest of the power that she serves.
Yeah, I would say we don't really get much of her motivation in the story, so I was kind of confused. Like Smugpug said, at first I thought this was the villain, and then it's like, oh wait, I guess she's trying to do good, and she's just getting rid of evil people for her sacrifices. So she's at least partially a hero in some instances.
Yeah, especially with the way that the first two characters that are introduced, Teddy and Nia, are treated. Those are the meth addicts prostituting the little girl out. I'm sharing a panel here. This it's quite graphic. So here she is up here, kind of smiling evilly as she's manipulating Teddy here to believe that there's a monster around his neck and cause him to cut his own throat. I do think the artist did a pretty good job in this panel too, conveying the fear on this guy's face, the tear in his eye, the blood, the saliva dripping off his teeth.
It's amazing, actually. Buck Rogers was just reading my mind. Is this essentially a Mary Sue character then?
I don't think so, because it's explained to the audience that she has these powers. I think the main problem with Mary Sue characters is they appear powerful, and no one really knows why. For example, Rey was just a girl in the desert, and all of a sudden she was the greatest Jedi ever without any training. With Isidora, she's 2,000 years old, and that's explained to us, so we'd probably assume that she has 2,000 years of experience fighting these creatures. And her powers also come from another worldly entity, so she's been imbued with them. So it's not a case of just this girl's running around fighting monsters and kicking ass, and we have no idea why. As the reader, we are given at least enough information to know.
I would also say a Mary Sue, it's not just they're powerful, it's that everyone likes them or respects them, and we don't really get that. But I would say this is another flaw. There's very little interaction she has besides fighting people, at least in this first issue. So the other characters are very, very sparse, I would say. I mean, we almost spend more time with these meth addicts than any other character besides Isidora.
Buck Rogers is clearly a fan.
Yes, I think we've sold him on it. I don't know that Mary Sue's are characters that also just receive their powers out of nowhere. I think Mary Sue's tend to not experience any genuine adversity, and that's the reason why they seem so overpowered, is because they overcome every challenge with so much ease. And then they have very shallow motivations. So they're just extremely two-dimensional characters that
I would also say that's impossible at this point to even know, because it's really just the first comic, so we just get a couple of scenes, and even in the latter scene where she's confronting this cult, she struggles with fighting them because they're actually a pretty powerful cult, and then there's unexpected events that happen that kind of mess up what she's trying to do. So she's not succeeding at everything she tries to do.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as the story progresses, she does experience conflict and is kind of stuck in a moment and needs to be rescued.
Yeah, she gets rescued at the end. So
yeah, I disagree.
Mary Sue.
She's not a Mary Sue if she's being rescued by a man.
Oh, I was going to ask if it was the little girl that rescues her.
No. The little girl is more of a plot piece rather than someone that we're interacting with that often.
Yeah, okay. And I don't know whether you noticed too, Moonshine, but I believe she mentions at some point that her full powers are at their strongest on the night of a full moon. So while she's like fighting and we're watching her fight, I don't think she's at her full strength. I think she's at her strongest on certain days of the year, I guess, under the full moon.
I think so. I don't recall that specific line, but it seems vaguely familiar.
Did you read the book, Moonshine? Question number 1.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure once the StreamYard link drops after the review, Lunga can come on and correct us. But I'm pretty sure I read that because she's talking about facing off against the entity that owns the cult, but she's talking about how she needs to do it on the night of the full moon when she's at her strongest. So
yeah, right. Twitless spoils the end for us in chat. Gnarler Tep.
I was regretting having to pronounce that name.
Gnarler Tep. This is actually one of the more famous elder gods in Lovecraft. He's mentioned multiple times. He's kind of like a god that he appears and like causes, I don't know, insanity in groups. It's like, but he likes to appear in human forms, and like he's kind of like the guy, the prophet coming down and getting followers kind of thing in Lovecraft.
Yeah, I kind of agree with this definition from Amit. never loses and never has anything to lose. That's I think that's a good way to sum up what I think of as a Mary Sue. And here, Lunga's helping us. Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep.
Lothep. Okay, I'll try and remember that.
That was the only name that I sort of remembered the Migos god, but that's the only name that really stuck out to me when I was reading this.
I promise to forget this the minute the stream is done, because it adds no value to my life. But,
in any case, though, he's a black man, so it's got diversity.
And yes, back Shotgun Samurai to help Odie get health insurance.
Oh no! Odie's
Seems like
in
a
trouble again?
reference.
Yeah, that's the reason why we back all these comics, is to get health insurance for Odie. He's the Black Pharaoh, apparently.
Yeah, he's kind of the one that interacts with humanity the most, I guess, in the Lovecraftian lore.
Also known as the Black Man. Okay. Does he walk around with his fist in the air?
Well, I think he has his hands raised. Does that count?
Let's not get into the whole "we was kangs" thing, guys. YouTube doesn't appreciate that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's, rightfully so, a very introductory issue, particularly for the length. It leaves us off with a cliffhanger and reason to be concerned for the future and well-being of this character and to come back for more. It sets up her journey and some of her motivation. I mean, she's doing it for the Yellow King. There's a bit of a mystery there that we still would like a little bit more information on, and reason to keep reading, I guess. Has Lunga said, and I mean, he can tell us, but is this meant to be a finite series, or is this something that's going to be just an ongoing series?
I'm not too sure. I guess that's something Lunga can clarify with us when he comes on.
Okay. And yes, it was mentioned that he does have an editor for the book, which, as we saw with the Xenotype review, carries a lot of weight on the quality of the material that you're reading. I guess that's the next question, is what did you think of the production value overall of the comic?
I mean, we have the digital, obviously, so we can't tell the materials and printing and whatnot. But I mean, it looks clean. I say the writing is a little small. It might be better in print.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't want to judge that too harshly. I'd have to see it in print to be certain. But otherwise, it looks fine. There doesn't seem to be anything amiss with the PDF, at least.
Yeah, so I feel like the story in the world Lunga's created is pretty interesting, and he's actually a author as well. He has a fantasy novel, so he has wrote things before, and I think it shows in the writing of his comic. He's very good with describing things. Like when Isidora confronts the cultists, she compares them to rotting flesh and debris in the forest, and I remember thinking that was a really good use of descriptive language. So his writing skills do come across pretty well in this comic book. They translate well. If I was to criticize something majorly, which I'm going to, is the lettering and the fonts. I feel like the rest of this book is fine, like the story, the world, the pacing, that's all fine, and the dialogue itself is fine, but just the way it's presented. And I'll bring up some examples here. But yeah, I'm not sure how this would have translated on a printed comic book, but I almost had to zoom in. So you can see here with this style of font, which is Isidora's text, how did you find me, this place? When I first read this, I read this as and, because the F and the I connect, and it looks like an A. And there's just little moments using this specific font where it is pretty hard to, you almost have to go back and read it again.
Lunga says in chat the lettering is being adjusted for issue number 2 because he wasn't completely satisfied with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got another one here as well. Just so this is the text on the
the
Migos
the Migos were actually hard because it did that shadowing, which really made it hard to read.
Yeah, I can appreciate what Lunga's trying to do. It's clearly a stylish design choice to, show that these creatures do sound different, and I do like seeing that in books. For example, in Xenotype, when the Lion Man had a different set of text for his speech. The only advice I'd give is to maybe just play around with it some more, experiment, find some other texts, and just one that's easier and clear to read. Other than that, the art and the coloring were fine. If I was to critique the art a little bit, I feel like the artist really is good on close-up faces, but sometimes from a distance they looked a little simple. But that wasn't anything really too bad. That was just a minor little nitpick.
Yeah, I say they're really good at making weird-looking things for the creatures and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I agree. I like the art style. So.
Yeah, I appreciated the art style in this book more than what I did on Berserk. I think it suits this type of book better. The cosmic horror with the monsters aspect. I think as I was reading it, I felt the same thing, Moonshine. That I was like, oh, this is almost kind of remind me of the same art on Berserker with Keanu Reeves. So,
is the writing better than Xenotype? Asks Amit.
Oh, Amit, nothing's better than the writing on Xenotype. That's a silly question.
I would say there's a lot of exposition or thought. I mean, we've read books where there's a little bit of exposition before, like Vestige. So, I mean, that's kind of a personal taste if you think it's too much or too little. But it seems a lot to me. But
well, and Twitless mentions here also there's zero dialogue in the comic. So do we not get a lot of...
true.
Do we not get a lot of characterization?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. She interacts with people very little. So, I mean, part of it's because it's the intro, but it's like there's almost no other character but her in this book. They don't have, at least, I mean, the meth addicts, I said, are like probably the most developed other characters in this story.
Yeah, she has a little dialogue with the Migo, and she also talks to the cultists, but otherwise it's normally just her thinking or the narrating.
Yeah, the only other character is there's a female cop that was arrested. She's there at the finding of the dead meth addicts, and then she gets involved with the cultists, but I don't think she says anything, or except for like put your arms up or something. So she's there, but she almost has no character because she doesn't really say anything or interact with Isidora except for right at the end.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think Lunga's setting something up there because in one of the panels at the apartment, Isidora, one of her powers is she can turn invisible to the human eye, but she reveals herself to the little girl to give a smile. And on one of the panels, the detective turns around and looks back and looks at the invisible form of Isidora, and then later she turns up the warehouse where the cultists were planning their sacrifices. So I assume he is setting something up with the detective, but I don't want to speculate on it too much, just in case it's spoilers.
I assume she will be at least somewhat integral of a character in later issues, but we don't see that here yet.
So we get to know about a lot of the characters, but we don't actually get to know any of the characters particularly well. There's nothing really...
I mean, Isidora, we know a little. I mean, she describes what her thoughts and kind of what she is.
There's nothing endearing, though, personal.
Not really, no.
Do you really care about the characters in any way?
Well, she saves the little girl, so that kind of endears you to her, but at the same time she manipulates the parents into brutally being murdered and committing suicide. So she is, and it is hard to relate to these sort of, I guess, godly godly sort of characters
It's
from a human level.
kind of
but-
like in Xenotype, where remember we had the eviscerated cat. This kind of give us sympathy for this that girl, but she led a bunch of people to be harvested. So it's like, well, she does something good, but she does things horrible too. So it's kind of hard to sympathize with her, at least from just this single issue.
She's the female version of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator.
Yeah, I think Twitler sums it up best in chat. She's definitely morally ambiguous, but that fits the Lovecraftian setting, which I agree with.
She's very shapely. So, I mean, Jack Stafford has his priorities straight. He knows what he's looking for.
Well, it's actually interesting you mentioned that because in one of our Discords, one of our members was involved in, I guess, a discussion with Lunga and mentioned the term smut comics. But yeah, there's no smut in this book. I mean, the closest thing you get is maybe a little bit of cleavage on the cover, which is perfectly fine in comic books. There's no lesbian fanfic romance in this story, at least not yet. So
I would say more it's the alternate covers or maybe some of the merch where you get the more risque. Like the cover itself is actually very action oriented and tame. The official cover.
Yeah, the story's played very straight. It's not a smart comic, and a lot of these crowdfunded comics do have, I guess, risque covers. I mean, Miss Sashi's famous for doing sexy covers for books that otherwise are played straight, so it's fine.
Apparently she shows a bit of ankle, though. So.
Yeah, she shows a lot of leg even. So I guess if you're offended by seeing legs, then I guess this book's not for you.
Well, Buck Rogers is definitely going to be not backing. He's actually fasting today, guys, so no leg for Buck Rogers, please.
I guess the meth addict woman is like in her bra and panties, which are very plain. If you think that's risque, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think she was really overly sexualized.
No, she's
I think
not
she was
sexualized. It was just like maybe they were going to have sex soon is the only thing that was implied. That's it.
Yeah, I was just thinking she's just a lazy, sweaty meth addict who's lying in a underpants in her bread.
She doesn't look like anything you would want to look at. It's more for the actual plot points and giving you a feeling for what she is.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
Wow, that was well played.
Okay.
There you go. So Skeletor also approves of this comic. And I guess we should probably move on to the other because we do have two that we want to review today.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk about Rob's comic. That's Tales from the Classroom.
Yes, so this is a huge switch of gears, even though it's presumably about monsters, but the tone and style of this book are completely different from what we just looked at.
Yeah, similar themed books, but very, very different. So Isidora and the Immortal Chains is obviously a very mature and adult story. It deals with a lot of adult themes like meth addiction and child sacrifice and stuff like that. Whereas Tales from the Classroom is more of a light-hearted, I guess, all ages kind of book. It's definitely suitable for children, and at the same time, there's something in it that adults can probably relate to and enjoy as well. So
and the art style, I would go back. It's almost like the Tim Lin. It's very clean. It's got nice thick lines, very colorful. The artist actually, I think, is very good. This ish, I think it's another name we'll probably get wrong, but Sebastian Bronico. And then there's an inker as well, Juan Castro.
With colors by Matthias Laborde. I don't know.
I'm sure they're all Spaniards, so that would be my guess. Given Rob Mort, who it's a pen name, but he's, I believe, from Spain.
So this is quite a colorful cast of characters here. Already I can see the personalities shining through.
Yeah. The simplest way to describe this is like, what if the monster characters were in Saved by the Bell, and Actually, somewhere in the book, Saved by the Bell is even name dropped. So
Yeah, it's like a Monster High. I guess there's
Yeah.
zombies, there's werewolves, there's vampires, swamp things. Yeah, an interesting, colourful bunch.
Okay, and is it just
Buck Rogers says he already likes this comic more because it has a dog guy.
I'm worried about you, Buck. I'm really worried about you.
yeah?
You gotta stop this, man.
The one below it's a little clever. Monkey in a monkey suit.
Right. Yeah. But so, is it a coming of age story? Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And
Yeah, it's very much like it's very much relatable, I guess, to like kids and, like I said, adults. Like it might appear childish, but I think there's something in it that everyone can relate to.
So it's the basic concept is a kid coming to a new school. So I mean that's obviously easily relatable to almost anyone, especially from their childhood. So the premise is he used to go to an all zombie school. He was like the big fish in the little pond, and then he's into this all monster type school, and zombies are kind of considered lower amongst the other monsters. Like he's not very good at anything compared to the other monsters, so he's instantly gone from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, he was like the popular zombie at the zombie school, which was called the Romero School as well. I guess a nod to Romero's zombie films, which is very clever.
Yeah, there's a lot of little clever things throughout this book. So, for example, there's a golem, and the golem is Jewish. So, if you know the lore behind golems, so it's clever.
The red golem of Prague, for example.
is this an apt comparison that it looks like Umbrella Academy?
I'm not too familiar with that. I guess the style's sort of familiar. Rob says this book actually was called Monster High when he originally made it, but then Monster High came out.
Oh, that's gotta suck.
Interesting.
Still, I think Tales from the Classroom still is a good title that sums it up well.
Yeah, I mean, you read that and you kind of already know what it's gonna be generally about.
Buck likes that there's a lot less lettering in it.
Yep, it's almost all of its dialogue. There's some thinking by Rob. It's kind of like, Wonder Years. He thinks to himself, oh, why did this happen? But it's mostly dialogue and stuff like that.
So very personable characters, it seems like.
Yeah, everything's stylized. Every monster looks different. So you instantly know who's who. You never get confused about who's talking or what. They each have their own distinct personalities. They're not the most amazing personalities, but you get them really quick with how they talk and how they act.
Yeah, for example, there's the Jewish sort of golem, and there's like the alpha Chad vampire called Drake, and a bunch of bullies that are werewolves called the Wolf Gang. Gang group. And
then this wolf guy is like his instant best friend. He's kind of like the slacker skater dude kind of got friend. He's like, he's a slacker essentially, but he's like a good guy. But they like to get into pranks and things like that.
Are they likable? Did you actually care or feel drawn to any of these characters?
Rob and the wolf particularly are very likable, and even his kind of counterpart, this vampire guy, he's not really that evil. Like there's a fight between him and his girlfriend, but it's not because it's because he just kind of was saying the wrong thing. So there's no one that's like really you hate. Even they all seem pretty likable.
And it looks like there's a wide cast of characters. Like, is this
that's like he doesn't have a single line, but you see him pop up. It's just another zombie guy, and he's like the nerd. He doesn't really ever say anything, but he appears in scene to scene, and he's very distinct. So like you just see him and you know him every time he appears.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the artist does a fantastic job differentiating all these monsters and making them look unique from one another.
Right. So the environment is very it's very well imagined. It sounds like
Yeah.
there's a lot of creativity here. So what kind of conflicts or adversity do monsters in high school face? Is it
Well,
asking the girl to the prom? What kind of things do
well,
they...
there's some of that in the background, but he does like make things unique. So he's a zombie, and so zombies eat brains, and so he says zombies, in most movies are stupid. So his gimmick is if the zombies don't eat their brains, they become really stupid. So he had to rush to get the class, and he didn't eat his brains. So through half the day, he's like going and stuff, acting like the classic zombie because he needs his brains, to get his energy back. So that's the first conflict. He needs food, and his friend helps get him brains, and then he's back to like kind of a normal kid who's a zombie. And then like one time some guy runs past him and it's so fast it like knocks off the zombie character's hand, and he's like, "Oh no, your hand." He's like, "Oh no, I'm a zombie. It's fine. I can just put it back on whenever. It's no big deal."
Yeah, I'll just sew it back on when I get home.
It's like I can't feel pain.
So yeah, I guess that's the plus side is he's kind of impervious to damage because he can repair his limbs, but at the same time, I guess he's vulnerable to it as well because the guy just bumped him and his hand fell off. So
that's kind of the conflict. Like in zombie school, he's really good at sports, but at one point he gets into a fight and punches, and the guy just looks at him like he did nothing because he's just punching with like skin and bones. So he's very weak because he's just a zombie compared to everyone else.
So it sounds like the issue that they're trying to address here, the social commentary, is identity for the most part. But
it's definitely like identity. At one point, he's like, "How do you not know zombies can do that?" And he's like, "Well, it's like look how many different types of monsters are here. I can't know what everyone's like." So it presents like diversity with monsters, but it doesn't like hit you over the head with it. It's more of like, when you talk to different people, you learn what they're like. But it's okay not to know if there's so many, because there's so many different types of people out there. So there's a kind of a little bit of messaging going on in the book as well.
What about things like puberty or angst or attraction? Any of those typical teenage struggles? Does he get zombie acne?
Well, I think Rob's kind of setting up that the alpha vampire's girlfriend, Eliza, could be a possible love interest for Rob. But then it becomes that dilemma of, well, she's the good-looking girl at school. She's dating, like, the alpha vampire jock, and he's, like, the new nerd. Well, I guess not nerdy, but just looked down upon new student.
Yeah, he's
kind of, I guess,
the loner, effectively, because nobody but the wolf guy wants to talk to him, because he's a stupid zombie, and, like, no one cares about zombies. They're stupid.
Yeah. So I think that'll be a dilemma upcoming, is how to get the girl away from the jock.
Interesting. Okay. So finding his place a little bit in this new social environment. And how's the humor? Because it sounds like this is mostly played up for the humor. Does the book make you laugh at all? Or
I mean, it maybe internally chuckle. I wasn't laughing out loud at it. There's a couple of neat little jokes. I mean, none of them are like very fresh or anything. Besides that, they're monsters. It's kind of maybe like a chuckle.
Yeah, I'd say more like a grin or a smile.
Yeah.
Like there's very charming and clever moments.
Yeah, charming
like
is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, it's clever and charming, and you smile and think, oh, that's pretty clever what it did.
And I would say this is pretty much geared probably more for kids. I mean, obviously there's some things like Toy Story where it's for kids, but you can, if you're an older, you can laugh at all the inside jokes. There's some attempts at inside jokes, but they're not like to the level of Toy Story, which isn't a huge criticism. That's one of the best movies ever made. But as an adult, you're probably not going to actually laugh at this. Maybe if you're a young teen, you would be laughing as you read it. Maybe because you'd be in the moment when you probably could connect to a lot more of what's happening in the book from personal experience happening, like, 2 months ago. It's like, oh, I remember doing something like that.
Yeah, I'd compare it to Bigfoot Bill by Doug TenNapel, whereby the intended audience probably is younger people, but there's something in it that adults can still enjoy too. Like it's not strictly a children's book. It does fall into that all ages category.
Yeah, I'd say young teen is probably where it's aimed at specifically. But if anything, you can enjoy the art. The art looks beautiful on every panel. There's nothing boring about any scene. Every scene is enjoyable to look at. So even if the story is like, oh, okay, I kind of can guess what's going to happen scene to scene, but the art always looks great.
Which book let character... well, we'll get to comparisons at the end, Jack Stafford. But I wanted to ask, so which... you said it's mostly charming, so which aspect of it left you the most charmed? Was it the relationship with the wolf? Was it some of his personal experiences? Was it the family photos that we were seeing there? What particularly endeared you to this character and this environment?
I think mainly how he goes about his life in the school. I'm pretty sure that he's being set up to be the loner who ends up proving that he's a good guy, and I just think the way he goes about it, some of his internal dialogue, how he's lamenting that he used to be the top dog at his previous school and now he's having difficulties here, but he's still optimistic and positive, and he's not letting it phase him.
Yeah, he's like a really good guy. Even when they show scenes at his previous school, and even though he's popular, you can see he's like really kind to everyone. He's not like the jock of his old school. He's just the most popular kid because he's good at everything, but he's like friends with everyone and nice to everyone as well. So he's set up as a very nice guy. It's just as a zombie, he's not amazing compared to all the other monsters. So he has like a lot of hard luck, but he's not like moping about it. He's like, oh well, I guess I have to do better. It's like, and he makes a friend, so he's like happy with his friend. So that actually the relationship between the wolf guy and Rob is kind of nice because the wolf guy is kind of, from a couple scenes, present him kind of as a coward, but Rob is kind of brave, even if he can't succeed in getting in the fights or things like that. But he's always kind of brave, and the wolf is a little cowardly.
Yeah, so immediately you think the werewolf would be the brave character because he's a werewolf, and those are pretty strong beasts in fiction, whereas zombies are more soft and sloppy. But like Moonshine was saying, it's actually the wolf that's I wouldn't say he's really cowardly, but I guess maybe more cautious. Like he does things that gets himself into trouble, and then when the consequences come along, that's when he kind of has a cowardly streak. Whereas Rob sticks up for his friend and has his back. Yeah. So he's a good friend. The relationship between those two characters is really, really endearing.
Would you describe it as the heart of the story, or is there another thing
that's the heart? Most of the story is those two characters getting in the antics or meeting each other or just talking about what it's like to be their type of monster or be in school and stuff like that. That's the core of the story, those two characters.
Do you agree, Smugpug? Was that where you felt warm and fuzzy inside, was reading about their bonding experience?
Yeah, well, it's always good, like, seeing the sort of the new guy loner at school find his place and make a friend on the first day. So it is, you kind of feel bad for Rob in the beginning. He's kind of looked down upon by his classmates. The teacher doesn't like him. Like I guess a lot of the other monsters are automatically prejudiced against him because he is a zombie. And I guess their reputation at the mixed monster school isn't all that great. So he's instantly got everything set against him from the beginning. But he doesn't let it phase him, and he still makes a friend and sticks up for his friend, and he's optimistic about life, so undeath, I guess. So yeah, it's a good story. I think a lot of good lessons for kids too. Basically, just be yourself. You can only try harder. You can only do as good as you do, and just see what happens.
So I guess here we have a scene where he and his friend are being introduced to the jocks.
Yeah, well, the wolf character, who's Eddie, plays I guess a prank on the Swamp Thing character, who's friends with the Alpha T vampire. So this is basically the two of them getting into a kerfuffle with like the two tough guys of the school, the jocks.
Yeah, that actually I would point out this is kind of a side story, but the Swamp Thing character is from the swamp and like good in water, but he can't handle bright lights, so he's actually blind. So it's kind of played off that he's stumbling around with his cane off, and that's probably the funniest thing in the book, just him not being this tough guy, but he's like trying to stumble around and find his way around. So you can see that's why he's holding that cane, because that's actually how he gets around when he's in bright lights.
So it sounds like they took a lot of time to think about unique characteristics for even the side characters here.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely very well thought out. I thought the zombies getting dumb if they don't eat was actually pretty brilliant.
Yeah, because like you want a likable character, but if you act like your standard zombie, you couldn't like him because he'd just be moaning and stupid. So it's like, well, he gets stupid if he doesn't eat. So then you get the standard zombies, but then you get the likable guy when he's in normal situations.
I like the colors very much here. Is the art consistent throughout the book?
Yeah,
the art,
every panel looks great.
Yeah, the art and coloring are fantastic the whole way through the book. I've no complaints at all.
And paneling, staging, length. Are there production issues that you would like to talk about as well that you enjoyed about the book or did not enjoy?
I think the production's very good. It's kind of a soft matte, and I think there's some spot gloss on the cover that looks neat. The lettering is great. Sometimes when there's characters, they have slightly different. I think he uses the same font, but he'll just color the word balloons. So like the swamp creature has green stuff, rather than just the standard white, and the golem is kind of a brownish color. The paneling is varied. There's nothing really special about it. Like Ethan will try to do a lot of crazy things, but at least it's varied, so it doesn't get boring looking panel to panel. There's a couple of dual page spreads, but usually there's many panels and different styles going on.
So you actually backed the physical of this too, didn't you?
Yes. So I'm looking at it now.
Did you want to talk about fulfillment? I mean, postage quality.
I think I don't remember what the postage I think was pretty reasonable, given that was sent internationally, and it wasn't sent in a Gemini because I don't think those are available in Europe, but it was sent in something similar, and it was big and boarded, so it was shipped very well, and it came in fine quality. So I have no problem with the shipping.
There's a lot of environments in this book as well, from what I'm noticing.
Yeah, I think you're showing a lot of the posters, but yeah, even in the story itself, yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah. Rob sent me a bunch of digital pinups. I believe these were stretch goals.
Yeah. I got some pinups. I don't know if I paid for them, if they were stretch goals. They're kind of glossy. They're a little bit bigger than a comic, so I don't know what size this is. It might be kind of like the 8.5 by 11 size, maybe a little bigger. They're nice.
Twiddler says, don't know why I thought this, but I'm reminded of the Creepy Crawlers cartoon. As I was reading this, I felt like this would be perfect on like Nickelodeon or something like that. I could very much see this being like one of those cartoons, early morning cartoon shows in the 90s, back with our real monsters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like zombies have their own font. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of design choices that Rob uses to differentiate all the monsters, which really works out well.
Yeah. For the story he was telling, you could see a lot of thought was put into this. It's not just something, here's an idea, just slap it together. He clearly thought about this, and this is at least this looks like exactly what he wanted, at least in terms of this comic.
And Does it leave off with a cliffhanger? Is there something to have you coming back for more?
Well, they pull a prank, as we mentioned, and then they get confronted, and he tries to stick up for his friend, and the result is he's like comes home with half his body in his backpack. He's like, how'd it go? And he's like, how do you think it went? So it's kind of like he's defeated. It ends on the first day, so he's kind of
basically the equivalent of the bullies beat him up on his first day, but he got beat up protecting and standing up for his new best friend. So,
but he seems that's like the point where he's like happy and trying to put up with all the difficulties. So that's the point. So it kind of ends at the low point when he's actually sort of defeated.
And I guess we should mention there is a sign-up page for the sequel.
Yeah, so I was actually gonna mention that. Rob's doing a sequel soon. I'm pretty sure it's this year. He told me the month in DMs, but I can't remember. I think it was April or May. So pretty soon. I'll drop a link.
Yeah, there's the Golem character. And apparently there's, if you know Matt C., he's doing some side stories for this, as we just read above there.
Oh, Matt C's working on the sequel.
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, he is too. Matt Protz.
Yep. Very nice.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, he collaborates with other people within the sphere, which is always good. Like the network. I think the networking in Comicsgate and in around these crowdfunded comic campaigns, whether they're Comicsgate or not, really, I guess it depends on your terminology. It's always good to see these artists and guys all network with each other and produce interesting things.
So it was back in the chat, but Rob said the second book will be geared a little to an older audience than the first one. So if this seemed like it was too young for you, and you like the art, but you might want to check out the second one. I think he has a different artist team for the second one, but I looked at it and it looked very similar to this one. So I don't know if he got an artist that can easily mimic the style or what he's doing.
And he says Von Klaus is doing a short story as well. So that's nice.
Yeah, from Monster MD. And I think Von Klaus was also working on the Lady Alchemy book as well.
Dun 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 dun.
And Von Klaus's Monster MD, I believe, is shipping right now, so which we may review at some point.
Oh,
yeah, that's definitely on the list as well.
Cool. Well, Isaac is sold. He definitely enjoyed what he saw. So
yeah. I'll be backing it too, Isaac. I Tales from the Classroom was one of those campaigns that I missed the first time around, but after reading the first book and noticing that the second one, I hope Rob puts a tier which bundles 1 and 2 together. That's always great on a second campaign for people that missed it the first time around. But I'll definitely be looking at backing this one too. I'm sold on the concept.
If you want another reason to back it, I know Rob can't come on now, but he has been on streams, and I will say he looks almost exactly like Jesus. So if that's convincing, you can back it for that reason.
Do it for Easter.
Yeah. And look, it's about something rising from the dead. There you go. Oh, actually, there's one joke that I forgot that actually was pretty funny. So when he's still in his zombie school, he's an artist, and he's drawing something. It's like, oh, let me see. And it's like, oh, that's gross. And he turns around. He's like, what do you call it? It's like, it's the accountant. So he draws this, boring human. So it's kind of implying that regular humans don't exist in the world. This is just a figment of his imagination. So that was a neat little kind of world building thing. It's like they're not like monsters in the human world. This is just a world of monsters. There's no normal humans anywhere.
There was also in the PDF towards the end an interactive feature, which I've never seen done in any of these books either. So it was like little speech bubbles that so there was a pin up with a speech bubble at the bottom, and then you'd click the speech bubble, and then some text would appear on the page. So it's quite interesting and innovative. I do like what Rob is doing. He's clearly doing things that haven't been tried before. It was refreshing and interesting to see.
Well, absolutely, people should back this second part or sign up for the mailing list if they want to know what happened with Rob after his first day, coming home defeated and dejected. But if you care about the characters after the first issue, then yeah, you're definitely going to want to see him get back on his feet, and hope everything that works out well for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's links in the description, but if not, when I do the timestamps post in the comments section, I'll make sure to include a link to the sign-up page and a link to Lunga's backer kit for people who might want to pick up the Isidora issue 1.
Cool. So, I guess now we'll get to the comparison.
Frisk baby!
Oh, geez, that's an old one. I remember that.
Yeah. So that's the fight setup. So I'll go back first. Let's address Jack Stafford's question here. He asked which book's lead character was more relatable and which book was a better time to read.
Well, I think the answer is kind of obvious on the relatable question, and it's clearly Rob.
Yeah, we relate to a zombie more than a human being. That's kind of weird, but...
Yeah. Well, it's just that Rob's in high school, and a lot of the problems and issues he's faced, I'm pretty sure, some people in the chat can certainly relate to. I mean, pining for the popular girl at school or getting into fights with the jocks and stuff like that. So despite the fact he's a zombie, he's a little bit more relatable in his high school setting than a girl with the avatar that's of a guy.
I will set up also because she interacts so little with anyone that it's hard to relate to her because she's talking at most to some Migos and yelling at some cultists. So as we mentioned, she doesn't really interact very much in this first part, so it's kind of hard to get a read on her and what she's like, if you were to meet her, because she doesn't really meet anyone else.
And which one was a better time to read?
Well, they were both enjoyable to me. I don't know where you got this idea, Well Read, to pit these two books against each other. I'm not
it's
sure.
Comics Gate, Blood Sports.
It's not the Blood Sports. The reviews are Blood Sports now. We need Rob and Lunga to come on after the review and fight each other to the death in the chat.
Just wait till we do the Doug TenNapel, Ethan Van Sciver grudge match review.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
Smug Pug's too nice. I would say interestingly enough, I would have the feeling from both books that they weren't for me. But if you're going to say which I enjoyed reading more, it still would be Tales from the Classroom, even though I had a feeling the story was a little bit too simplistic and predictable for me. I enjoyed the art a lot, but the story itself is that okay for Tales of the Classroom. Isidora, I don't know what it was, but I didn't like it. Strangely enough, I can't really pinpoint what I didn't like. I just had a feeling of distaste. Not as bad as White Lily at all, but more of like, it's not for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading both of them. Like, even though they're both completely different, while at the same time being similar. So they're both clearly about supernatural. They both have nods to Lovecraftian themes. Isidora, I guess, is the more adult story with mature adult themes and violence, whereas Tales from the Classroom is more the light-hearted, heartwarming, all-ages story that anyone can pick up and really enjoy. Having said that, though, I feel like if we were evaluating them, Tales of the Classroom succeeds more at what it's trying to do, which is be a fun all ages kid book. And I think a lot of that has to do with this is just the first issue of Isidora in what's probably going to be a longer and more complex story. So
it's a little unfair. It'd be like reading the first 25% of Tales from Classroom and then comparing it to Isidora, it'd probably be a fairer comparison. So if I only read the first 25 pages, like, well, what's going to happen? I didn't get the full story. So Isidora is a $5 comic in the first issue. I mean, it's definitely just an introduction. So
yeah, it always is really hard to judge these comic series and what's going to be a long series just by their first issue. I'd say Isidora did a fine job establishing, basic information about what we need to know about the story, like who she is, who she serves, what she's doing. But it's just some of the little details, like how she interacts with others, that I guess we're missing.
I will say Isidora feels completely unique in its own thing, whereas Tales from the Classroom, while it does have few cute gimmicks like the eating brains for a zombie and good ideas, it's I don't want to say paint by the numbers, but as I said, it's like Saved by the Bell if they're run by zombies. It's like you hear that and then you invent a story in your head and you probably can guess a lot of what's going to happen in this book.
Yeah. I feel like both Rob and Lunga are actually both really good writers. And I guess when I get to the points stage or whatever it is, the rankings, I'll elaborate on that more. But I do feel like of a lot of the books I've read that I've crowdfunded, Rob and Lunga both know what they're doing. They're both really accomplished writers. I think my main, I guess, sort of complaint with Isidora is like for 24 pages, it is still really hard to know everything that's going on. And at the same time, just the lettering, the lettering and the fonts really was a bit of a struggle to get through. But Lunga said he's looking at fixing that for issue 2, so he's obviously aware of it as well. So it's not a big problem.
I like to also point out that it's clearly they both really like what they're doing. These are projects of love for both of them. It's not just a quick cash grab or here's a story I kind of care about, but I don't have time for you plebes to make this. This clearly something they're putting a lot of effort to and they're really interested in. Whereas I guess the example of the contrary is White Lily. It seemed more like Preston was writing something to make sure it sold well on Kickstarter. It didn't seem like he cared too much about it to me.
You really didn't like White Lily, did you, Moonshine?
No.
So I guess in terms of rankings, Isidora and Tales of the Classroom, enjoyed. Oh, sorry, Warren.
Can I just ask a quick question before we do scores? No, sorry, you were asking about a White Lily and Isidora. Were you going to rank those two?
Yeah, I was going to ask Moonshine how he felt about both the books we reviewed today compared to some of the others that we've reviewed previously.
Okay,
where did they fit?
Could I quickly ask, though, so is there anything that one book did particularly well that you wish the other had also done as well? Did one excel where another one lacked?
The only thing I could think of is Tales from Classroom had a lot of dialogue and character interaction, which we didn't see in Isidora. I mean, again, it's an introduction, so it's a bit unfair to compare something that's like a complete story arc to something that's just a single issue, but that would be the difference. The other things, it's hard because their tone and goal are so different. It'd be hard to say what you'd replace from one to another.
Yeah, I think Isidora as a protagonist is a bit more mysterious at the moment. Like, we still don't really know too much about her. I'd like to. I think she's definitely an interesting character, kind of sort of that like anti-hero. So I guess a point in Rob's favor is we can know more about Rob Zombie, a bit more than we do Isidora. I think he made it a lot more relatable and understand where he's coming from, especially just being a zombie kid in high school. It's still easier just to relate to that as opposed to a mysterious avatar goddess who's fighting cosmic beings.
And I mean, I would say I like the art in Tales from the Classroom better, but it's not the right style at all for Isidora, so it's definitely not something you would want to replace it with. I think the art style is largely correct for Isidora, for what you're trying to, the feelings you're trying to invoke with the images. So a lot of it's not interchangeable because these stories are so completely different. But I would just say character interaction is the one major missing piece from Isidora at the moment. I realize that can be added in future issues of the story.
How many, you probably know, Moonshine, how many pages was Tales from the Classroom? Was that 24 pages as well? Or was that
Definitely more than that. 60, 50. I'd have to look at the campaign. Or there's no page number, so I can't easily tell you, unless I count right now.
Yeah, I feel like Tales from the Classroom was probably around maybe like 48 pages, which means it is kind of unfair to compare it to Isidora, because Isidora was 24 pages. Tales from the Classroom is almost like reading, I guess, the first 2 issues of Isidora and the Immortal Chain. So we would have a better idea of Isidora, I assume, after 48 pages as compared to the 24 that we've read so far.
So sorry.
Yeah, it might just be 40. With a quick count I just did. But I mean, yeah, it's closer to 2 full issues.
You were asking Smug if Moonshine would give a ranking.
Well, I know how Moonshine feels about his rankings. He doesn't like doing it, but I guess the way we trick him into doing that is to ask him if he enjoyed the books more than the books we've previously reviewed. So how do they stack up against, say, like White Lily, Vestige, Carmen
There's
America,
nothing
Berserker?
worse than White Lily. It's kind of, they're kind of in the common Americas where it's I appreciate what they're doing. It's not exactly for me tier.
And that includes Isidora, because I think you're partial to the more mysterious.
I mean, I know I've read
stories.
Lovecraft, but this particular story didn't really do anything for me. I'm actually not really sure why. It just didn't.
Okay. So
I'm wondering if it's just female protagonists. I don't like it. I don't know.
So lukewarm response.
Yeah.
For you. Okay. So I guess we can do scores. So Smug, would you like to rate each book? And you can't give them the both. Well, I won't say anything. Never mind. Just
I can't give them both the same score. No. Well read.
I'm only saying that because I kind of think you might do that, just because it's I set up a blood sports review stream. But if you want to, it's your choice. I'm not going to drive the reviews one way or the other. Whatever you want to give them is up to you.
Well, I'd just like to. Well, one clearly is, in my mind, I did enjoy a little bit more, but that's through no fault of either of like the guys. Like, I'd just like to say, like, both Rob and Lunga are probably some of the better writers in the crowdfunding sphere. Like, Lunga is an author. He previously crowdfunded a fantasy novel. I noticed that when I checked the Kickstarter page. He had another created project, and I took a peek. So I think his writing skills, like, I haven't read his fantasy novel. I think that transfers well over to comics. Like, he was very descriptive in his scenes, and what dialogue there was dramatic, like when she's confronting the Migo. So Lunga's writing is definitely not an issue. Like, he's clearly a very accomplished writer, I believe, especially compared to other books that I've backed that have just been absolutely terrible. Same with Rob, again, like, both very, like, it was clever and heartwarming and endearing. I guess the part where Isidora kind of falls short to Tales of the Classroom really comes from the lettering. So it was more of a production issue rather than writing. The art on Isidora is fine. It reminded me of Berserker, but the coloring on Tales from the Classroom, I think, was superior. So I guess if I was to rate them both, Isidora gets a 6.5, and Tales edges it out with a 7 out of 10. So Tales
7 out of 10 would back again.
7 out of 10 would back again. Well, I didn't back it originally, but I will in future. I'll probably pick up Isidora as well.
I was thinking about your colors comment. Is like, now looking at this page, it's like, I think even if the art style's the same, just colors that weren't quite so washed out might have helped if they actually were closer to Tales of the Classroom, with just the coloring, just making some things pop, like maybe the monsters and stuff. That might help. I don't know.
Yeah, but overall, like, anything over 5 from me is a definite recommend. So I do recommend, the audience check out.
So remember, everyone, that means Smug Pug recommends every issue of White Lily.
Well, some of the White Lilies I gave a 5, which I guess means it's borderline.
Take or leave.
Take or leave, yeah. But yeah, I recommend everyone follow these two artists on Twitter. Check out the links in the chat and description, and keep up to date with their campaigns. I'd recommend both.
I will say, for White Lily, since I've been reading it, I think I like the Baba Yaga story more than Isidora. So it has that.
Okay.
So I like 4 pages better than this story.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So 4 pages were good out of White Lily.
I hope Lunga comes on here and chews you out, Moonshine.
Well, so I'm hearing that your preference was for Tales then, Moonshine, over Isidora. It sounds like you weren't too fond of it.
I like the art in Tales more. I didn't dislike reading either of them. I got bored sometimes for Tales of the Classroom, but I guess at times I was enjoying it, whereas Isidora, I was mainly confused and thinking about what does this mean, so I had to read back a lot. So it might have just been that's the intro and I need to think about what's going on. That kind of took me out of the story.
Okay. So it sounds like we managed to draw out a victor out of our 2 reviewers. It sounds like Tales from the Classroom just barely edges it out. For
just edges it out. Just a few things. Just like the lettering is more well done in Tales, and the coloring more vibrant.
I guess I would compare the Isidora to something more serious. If we had to compare it kind of to Vestige 2, nothing was technically wrong with it. Everything is good, but the story didn't grab me, and the particular story didn't grab me.
Well, I enjoyed reading Tales from the Classroom and Isidora far more than Vestige 2. Vestige 2 was the worst book I've read so far.
2 the most of all the reviewers that night, so there you go.
Yeah,
although
Vestige,
that was
Vestige 2. Yeah, Vestige 2 earned that 4 out of 10 from me, I feel.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys gave it a 4.
Yeah, I gave Vestige 2 a 4. That's I don't want to get back into the Vestige review, but that was such a grind getting through that book. It never felt like a grind getting through either of these 2 books.
Yeah, it did not feel like White Lily. I agree.
Okay. Well, do you feel it's time to drop the link in the chat, Well Read? I think Twitless might want to talk about.
Yeah, we might want to just
Isidora.
get Twitless for a few minutes, since he kind of thought about Isidora quite a bit.
Well,
I think Lunga might want to come on too, so.
Sure. But to the victor go the spoils. The 2 bulls fought it out, and one came out on top. So congratulations to Tales from the Classroom. You are the better bull. And
Vic points out, dude, Isidora is way cheaper than Cyberfog, the collector's box. Yes, Isidora is very well priced. I will give it that.
Yeah, and although neither of us received a physical copy of Isidora, I did hear from Stu that it was packaged perfectly. So, in terms of fulfillment, I guess Lunga did do very well as well. Like, the book wasn't late, they didn't arrive damaged, everything was taken care of. So, I did ask Stu about that a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, Lunga gets top marks for fulfillment, which I believe Rob does as well, from the sounds of it too, Moonshine.
Yeah, I remember it being very well packaged. I think it might even had bubble wrap besides all the other of it. I can't quite recall. I actually received this book many months ago, I think even before the turn of the year, so I just hadn't got around to reading it until now.
Apparently my bull video doxed Amit, so sorry about that, Amit. I didn't realize you were taming the bulls.
Have you ever seen Cow Wars?
No.
No, we will have to show you that someday. It's much more peaceful than the bullfighting. But
Okay.
So is Testify going to come on and yell at us now?
I think he's dead, so he's DED right now. So
We have something just slightly worse. We have Lunga
Dean. Oh,
and Twitless.
oh, there you go.
Baba fucking Yaga. Baba fucking Yaga. Listen, every criticism Moonshine, I was fine. I'm like, hey, it's cool. Everyone has it. But that at the very end, Baba fucking Yaga, are you fucking kidding me?
Hey, I just enjoyed when she killed her own family with fire. Come on.
What?
I kid. No, but thank you guys. I do appreciate it, and I'm glad you guys took a look at it.
Yeah, like, I feel like it was still a great book. It was just, I think you mentioned the lettering will be changing for issue 2. Is that right?
Well, yeah, issue 2 is going to be. I'm working on it towards May. I already have 3 covers going, and actually a 4th. Today, if you guys are familiar with Mark McKenna, I actually met him in another stream a few days ago, and I started talking to him, and he's going to do a black and white limited cover for Isidora as well.
I have. Keep going. Finish your thought, but I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. It might play into what I was going to say anyway. So,
where is Isidora originally supposed to be from? Because I know it's the Roman Empire, but it clearly looks like he's some province of the Rome, like I don't know, Africa.
Yeah, she's from Rome. Again, this does come from, and I know not everyone who's just used to just reading comic books, will necessarily appreciate my style of storytelling. But being like Smug talking about, coming from a novel writing kind of background, I like epic stories. I like some slow burns. I like a story developing as you read it. This is just personally. I hate when I pick up a comic and the first issue 1, everything is explained to me in that first issue. I hate that. I just can't stand that. I want it to grow. I want the story to develop, and I want people to learn this character as it goes along. So that's why I wrote it that way. But she does originate from ancient Rome. It's going to be her background's going to be more fleshed out as the issues go on. But she originally started in ancient Rome, and through a series of events, she ended up becoming this herald for the King in Yellow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind stories that develop. I like Gardens of the Moon, so I can't get more convoluted.
I was going to say, I know it's an oldie, but Bone by Jeff Smith is an epic story and a slow burn, but it's widely recognized as an amazing story. So
for comic writing, I guess when I talk about comic book writers, one of my inspirations is people like Neil Gaiman and how he did Sandman. And
I can see that.
Yeah, that's kind of like my. I mean, I have a lot of other comic book writers that I really look up to as well, but Neil Gaiman is a big one as far as this story goes. And it's going to be. This is not a one issue thing. This is planned to be. I would say if we go by 24-page issues, this story arc is probably going to be 6 to 7 issues. To do this arc, but that's not going to be the end of her story either. And I'm planning to expand the world, and there's going to be other characters that are introduced and other stuff like that. But yeah, as far as like you're mentioning, there's not a lot of dialogue. Issue 2, literally 95% of it is all dialogue. There was a lot of exposition and a lot of setup that I had to do. I had to make a choice because I only could have at the time because my first comic book, I literally had no one to kind of support me. I was doing this all on my own. I wasn't going on streams. I wasn't asking anyone. There's a little bit of pride there involved with me too, but I had a choice of either just doing this big info dump in 24 pages and be no action pretty much, or leaving some stuff to wait until issue 2.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you could do this, if you had infinite money, do you think you'd do issue 1 and 2 as just the one shot? So
definitely. I would have did at least 48 pages. And matter of fact, the reason why I have 4 covers, issue 2, the campaign for issue 2 is actually going to have a metal cover that's going to be a 1 and 2 put together, 48 pages in one book.
So if I could weigh in just a little bit, you said you were talking about the slow burn.
Yeah.
One thing that I was slightly disappointed with, if you can allow me to nitpick just a tip,
of course,
was because we were following the Avatar herself. She actually explained some of her powers a bit.
Yeah.
And I would have preferred maybe seeing the story a little bit more through the detective's eyes, so that we get to see more of the mystery and then maybe her discovering what those powers are. Because like when you say, "Oh, I have like the yellow sign," and then you kind of more explain like how that works, it did take a little bit of the mystery out of it for me. So that was just a slight little. And Lovecraft is so much about the ununderstandable, like the things you cannot comprehend, and the more that you can hint about how a power works and then infer and then even leave parts to the imagination, I think that's where Lovecraft does his best work. Some of the I'm not talking about your work, but I have noticed that a lot of what I would call the Lovecraftian works that don't do so well are the ones that I feel like over-explain it. Because if you over-explain like Cthulhu, he's just a octopus monster.
Right.
Where Cthulhu works the best in the Call of Cthulhu story is the non-Euclidean geometry. It's the fact that, relay doesn't follow the laws of physics, and you could run down a hallway and like drop off a cliff because like the city works like an MC Escher painting. So like it's those types of things where it's like you can barely understand it, and then the rest of your brain has to kind of just like either like there's like a healthy amount of confusion, which I think is a difficult thing to work with in writing, because a lot of people when they get confused, they get frustrated. I think Moonshine kind of mentioned a little bit of that.
Exactly. And I had to take that into account for comics, because it's like comic book readers, and rightfully so, they expect a certain condensed kind of story and not to have everything be this mystery where so I have to take it into account, being that these are comic book readers, and I got to give them something that they're going to also enjoy, not just make it a novel in comic book form.
Yeah, one thing that I would love to see more comic book writers do is use thought balloons. I think thought balloons have really fallen out of favor, but like being able to jump inside like that detective's head and be like, "What the hell is that?"
Are you reading my script for issue 2? Is that what you're
doing? I will say though, if you use thought balloons, it's annoying if you only get one character's thought balloons, because then you've told me this is limited third person. And then all of a sudden, if I see everyone's thought balloons, I'm like, wait, why did you change the writing perspective? I do not like that.
Exactly. And even when you're writing novels, it's like you can't change POV in the middle of a chapter unless you have a break in the middle of the chapter.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not classic, but George R.R. Martin, he's like, he tells you whose perspective.
Yeah, exactly. It's the name of the chapter is whose perspective it is. But yeah, as far as your point, Twilis, too, about the way Lovecraft and the way those elements are and explaining there the mystery. I specifically tried not, because I'm not trying to make a pastiche, if you will. I'm not trying to emulate Lovecraft or emulate Chambers with it, because he's the one who originally made the King in Yellow, which is vastly different than what we've seen, in Lovecraft. But I wasn't trying. I'm not trying to make a pastiche. And what I'm doing is it is kind of a mashup. I'm trying to take what at least I enjoyed, and I think hope people enjoyed of the Lovecraft mythos, and mash it up with a superhero kind of universe, and give it, instead of having this. Everything is completely, because in Lovecraft a lot of stuff is pointless, right? There's no getting out of this. It's madness. It's dour. It's there's no.
I mean, it's short story format. Right. It's like a normal story. Something weird happens, and then the ending. So I mean,
right. But it's never happy. It's never a good ending. So I was trying to inject a little bit of hope. It's like, can we imagine? Can there be a hero in a Lovecraft world? And that's what I was trying. That's what I'm trying to go for with this.
Since Well-Wed's being a whole horrible host, Ahmed has a question a little bit.
Well, I've been waiting actually for a chance to pop it up. So, what about doing a zero issue Lunga? Would you consider something like that?
Zero issue? You mean talking about like a whole background issue, basically?
Yeah, basically.
Well, Ahmed has a question there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Ahmed's question. Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be something I'd be definitely interested in doing. Again, it's just a matter of I gotta set this world up. I gotta get people interested in it and have them, looking at it and stuff like that. And to me, those kind of zero issue things are great when you have a following and people are like, oh, I really like this character, I like the story. I'd love to know, this kind of stuff, and then do a zero issue, for it rather than dump that all out early. But yeah, definitely.
Are you gonna add any Dunasy stuff into your story?
Any what?
Dunasy. He was one of the inspirations for Lovecraft.
Oh, gotcha. No, not really. I'm not going with that. I'm taking just some of the main things from Lovecraft that people know. And again, as we know, people have grabbed onto Lovecraft mythos and made. That's why I love Lovecraft so much, the mythos, because it all these different authors and writers have taken it and kind of taken their own thing and added onto the mythos.
I've read everything Lovecraft written, but I have almost no interest in the mythos that's developed after. So anything in there I kind of get bored of really quick.
Well, that could lead to why you don't like this.
Yeah, I like his style, but like the people that like focus on the monsters, I'm like, I like the monsters like just presented right at the end. It's like, and then it's over.
Yeah, and that's why for the majority of them, that's why I create this whole duality thing, right? And to add a bit of confusion, Isidora is not one of the dualities. She is an agent, if you will.
Yeah, I noticed that I noticed that a little bit. So
yeah,
it's like,
she's a herald.
Because the dualities pretty much are just the god. They don't have
with the old ones, right? Because I didn't want to, with the exception of a little bit of spoiler. I mean, you see it at the end. Nyarlathotep, because you guys are familiar. You kind of hit on it. Nyarlathotep of all the old ones and stuff like that. He's the one who's like the most curious, and he's the one who's more involved with humanity. You would say, rather than the other ones are. At least more distant.
I mean, I don't know the mythos, but in the Lovecraft story, he's the only one that seems to like keep interacting with humans. Right. All the other ones are kind of like locked away, or right at the end they interact with a human.
Right. Or they're slumbering, or they have really no care. To them, humans are like insects. They don't even pay attention to them. They're doing whatever they're doing. So the reason why I did a duality is because I wanted to be able to have a way to bring these characters in without having these powerful old ones just slumming it with people.
Which would make no sense given what they're supposed to be.
Exactly. So I have it to where it's kind of a duality, to where you have these great old ones and they're still out there in the voids and in space, wherever they are slumbering, sleeping, whatever the case is, and then they have their dualities, which are kind of like enhanced mortal aspects of themselves on Earth, that kind of still do like they're the same but separate.
Yeah, so you're kind of setting up they like need sacrifices or something, so it's like their food or something,
right? And she has she's again, it's going to be explained later. I set it up in that Kickstarter thing where she's basically he's slumbering. The King in Yellow, and again, it's maybe confusing for people, but the King in Yellow is the duality, and Hastur is the Great Old One. So that's how I'm using.
Okay, so she's an agent of the duality. Okay.
Yes. So she's found a way to also make the King in Yellow sleep in Carcosa, so she can kind of now go off and do her own thing. And her goal is, she's looking to, again, if we had issue 2 and those 48 pages, you would see this. She's looking to rejoin humanity. She wants to go back to humanity because she originally was part of humanity, and she has this need to say, you know what, someone needs to care about humanity.
I think I'm now beginning to understand why I didn't like this. It's because I was given half the story and I was trying to figure things out, and I can't because I don't have the rest of the story.
Right. And in a perfect world, it would have been a 48 page or more, right off the bat. But it was my first book. I had limited funds to do what I do, and I paid for it all. It was all done pretty much paid for before I even started the campaign. So I put all my money, into it to get it going.
But again, it's $5, so you give it a chance, and it's like, well, this is interesting enough, and spend another $5 and get the rest of the story.
And I'm adjusting the campaign too to make it better for people too, to where. There'll be the higher end price on products like the metal covers and then this and that, blah blah blah. But you'll be able to get issue 2. The actual physical copy for $5,
Well, Amit wants a free review copy that you sent us, maybe.
Don't do it longer. It's a trick. Amit gets nothing. Amit gets no review copy.
I do think Rob said he's giving out his first issue for free with his second campaign. So there you go, Amit. There's a free review copy for you.
I mean, it's $5. If you can afford a Subway foot long, you can afford this book.
Exactly. Twiddlers literally did it right before the stream.
Amit lives in a third world country. $5 is like a fortune to him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rob actually has an interesting offer in the chat too. He says, after this stream, it stands to reason that we should have a Isidora and Tales from the Classroom crossover.
I think a poster of that'd be fun, but
that would be fun. No, it would.
The story, that'd be a little hard.
Again, I mean, you can still play with stuff, I mean, one of the pinups, the prints that I made was a manga inspired print. You know what I mean? So it's meant to be cute. It's meant to be, So there's always fun things you can do with the character. It wouldn't be main continuity, if you will, but it'd still be a fun thing.
Yeah, just kind of like maybe like an Elseworld story where maybe Isidora is a teacher, comes in as a substitute teacher at the high school, where all the monsters go.
Exactly. And as far as the questions, just I want to address this too, the Mary Sue questions people had. Again, this is issue 1. There's a lot of story to be told. There's gonna be moments, and I can't give it away, but there's gonna be moments where you're gonna see. No, definitely not. You're gonna see. There's gonna be a lot of step backs for her. There's gonna be a lot of things that are now, not allowing her to be that kind of character.
I think that comment was from a troll, and a smug plug and I.
Well, I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah,
honestly,
it was from me. Just FYI.
Yeah.
It's not an entirely unfair question to ask. Actually, I've got an. I will say the most. I've got a pick. This was the most Mary Sue moment for me, and it was mostly just her pose and her attitude towards the Lovecraftian thing. But it was just kind of like the way she's cocked her head to the side, and the way she's kind of like, I'm taking you cultists down, and like.
Is there an 8 tattoo?
Well, hold on. Is that a Mary Sue? No.
I'm just saying that. I'm not saying this was Mary Sue. I'm just saying that I think that this was the closest that I think you could make that criticism. I think this is the closest that it flirted with that whole idea for me. Because when I hit this point, I did eye roll just a tad, because I was like, oh, here we go. She's got the the attitude.
Yeah, but that's the problem I have with that, because people now, any woman with any kind of little bit of an attitude is, that's a Mary Sue.
No, let me finish, because it's not just the attitude part. To me, it was again just an issue, a small issue I had with the story was just, it didn't, to me, this doesn't scream Lovecraft. So I had this little moment of tonal dissonance where I was like, wait a second, this feels like Buffy the Vampire Slayer now. And it's like I feel like that skewing that way. I just don't think that fits Lovecraft, because with Lovecraft, you don't want your Buffy Summers character, because Buffy can conquer all. In Lovecraft, it's like, even if you win, it's like, what have you won? You're an infinitesimal speck in the cloud of Azathoth's eye. And so, like I said, just minor criticism. Again, don't.
No.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not upset at all.
Right. It just, when it comes to the whole Mary Sue criticism, like, this was the panel that came to mind. I was like, this was the closest that I think the comic flirted with that, because I don't think it goes into full on Mary Sue. But
I disagreed that she's a Mary Sue character, because we do, in the final fight with the cultists, we do clearly see her struggle with what's happening, like, against the cultist priest, and
right. I'm not saying it was. Yeah,
it requires a man to come and save her, and I think we all know that is definitely not a Mary Sue character.
And she bumbles around because this police detective accidentally takes her powers away from her, or some of them away from her.
And that's going to play into her, because she's a big important character.
Okay, so again, I'm just doing this for devil's advocate's sake. Okay, I do not think she's a Mary Sue, but to be fair, Smug, one of the accusations for a Mary Sue, one of the templates or requirements of a Mary Sue character is often how much of a first name basis they are with characters who are much farther up the food chain than they are. So technically, although she does get rescued by a man, she is rescued by Nyarlathotep, who is an elder, great old one. So technically that could count if we're being super nitpicky on Mary Sue counters. I don't think she's a Mary Sue. I'm just, for devil's advocate's sake, you could.
And I guess it's because it does come into my writing too. I love, and I've always loved them, and it doesn't matter be it they're male or female. I've always written snarky, sarcastic characters. I like that kind of character. I like the character that thumbs their nose at authority, thumbs their nose at power. And it's just because that's how I am as a person. I thumb my nose at anyone that thinks they have any kind of power or authority.
Sure, I would just be cautious of doing that with Lovecraft, because, like I said, I think you run the risk of
right. But again, like I said, this is a mashup, not a pastiche. Think if Wonder Woman was in a Lovecraft world.
I have a question. Have you ever played Call of Cthulhu role plays, or were you ever interested in that?
The closest I have is we have the Pandemic game. Me and my kids played a Pandemic Cthulhu game, which is really fun. But I haven't played RPGs.
I've played Arkham Horror, the board game, which got a teeny bit of role play in there. It's also the world's longest board game.
And as far as the lettering, you guys were talking about the lettering. I did want to address it. That was the one thing after I was done with it. because Alper did he did the penciling, the inking, and the lettering, and then his partner Serkan Sarakaya did the coloring. I was going to originally hire a letterer, and Alper's like, I can do it. I've done lettering, this and that. I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's fine. All right. And he matched the price that I was going to pay for it with somebody else. So I'm like, okay, sure. And this is the weakest knowledge base I had in comic creation was lettering. So I wasn't sure how it would come off. So I wasn't happy with it once it was done, but I was already there. I'm like, well, let me put it out. It's not great, but at least let's put it out. But for issue 2 and the combo book that has issue 1 and 2 in it, I'm gonna be hiring a new letterer to.
Oh, so the lettering's gonna be redone for
right.
Yeah, and not to go too far into it, like it was legible. I mean, even if there were a few characters, I think the Migos and so on was just a little bit difficult, but it wasn't like I definitely read the whole comic. I didn't go, oh my gosh, my eyes, because like there's lettering that I've read before, like my eyes are straining, I'm giving myself a headache. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about that because it was definitely serviceable.
I mean, they're old people sometimes. I remember like Ethan in Blood Honey. He has the robot Kelson, right? Read out and kind of funny characters. I had no problem reading it, but I know some people didn't like reading it.
I mean, George was able to read. I mean, George had the same criticism, but George was able to read it. So if George,
Peter Yatz's.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, George is pretty old. So
yeah. So if he was able to read it, but he did have the same criticism. He's like, the lettering's not great. I'm like, yeah, I know. I said the same thing I told you guys. I'm going to get that all redone for issue 2.
Well, I do like that everyone just agrees. It's like we don't come up with criticism out of our ass.
No. Of course not. And I got to say, and this has nothing to do with recent events or how me and Preston are with each other, but I did back White Lily, and I got all 5 issues. The story does not interest me at all.
Yes, that was the agreement. The story itself is like, why is this story being told?
Right. And it's like he picked this random historical character that I don't know if he has this kinship with this historical character. But, and we know Preston comes from a screenwriting background, right?
When this was supposed to be a movie, I think.
Exactly. When I've read his scripts, and it's kind of the same struggle I had as being a novelist. When I read White Lily, and I've read his other scripts when he's done his shows when I used to go on there, it's the panels play out like it's a movie, and sometimes that can be a problem, and that's what I saw.
I pointed out that since it plays out the movie and there's a lot of character interaction, the faces are really important. Sometimes the faces just won't draw on good enough, and so you don't really know what they're feeling. It just falls flat. Because for something like an actor's doing these same lines, it might have worked because they're actors and they could make it work, but I think the comic it didn't work.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have noticed. I think there's a trend in a lot of modern mainstream comics as well, where people think like they watch a lot of TV and then they script their comics like television shows, and it's just it doesn't work.
Can't do it.
I think you can do it, but you really got to get those faces right.
Well, it's also about pacing too, right? Because television shows are paced very differently than comics. They focus on different scenes. They use different.
Well, I mean, you can use dramatic pauses. Where's a dramatic pause in a comic? A blank panel? You can't do that. So you got to change it up a little bit.
Yep. And I mean, it depends. It depends who you were. I mean, Alper, I'm still amazed that this comic book came out as good as it did, because Alper, he's from Turkey. And there's a language barrier, and all our communications were over Facebook Messenger.
Well, I guess you should take it as a compliment that we compared it to Berserker, because apparently Ron Garney is a rather famous artist. So
yeah.
And I was, it reminded me of Alex Maleev, who did Infamous Iron Man, just kind of like the grittiness of it, which I think, I mean, I'll say this, I think that going, if anything, I think you should go further, lean further into the grit and chaos. I think that you could even go so far as like, you know, Arkham Asylum with it at times, with the art style if you want, because Cthulhu and Lovecraft, you know, lends itself really well to
we have the comic expert here.